Okay, so we are going to look at something that we call arrays. Now I have the same setup I had here before. I have this right here. Just start over here. So I have this empty right now, and I just have a list of movies. And once again, if you look over here, I just have my JavaScript hooked in. So I have my console log open. I'm ready to go. So let's say we have a client, for example, who has hundreds of movies, and he wants us to sell them for him. He wants us to build a website for him and then sell the movies via the website. So there's a lot of logic that would have to go behind selling and buying movies for this guy. You would have to check if the movie was in inventory and so on and so forth. And so what we wanted to do is make variables for him. So I just made a minimalistic list here. But let's say that there's hundreds of movies. Can you imagine writing out hundreds of these all the way down? Can you imagine the logic you would have to do to parse through every single one to see if you actually had a push in inventory? That would be way too much work. And that's why something was made to help us here. And that's called arrays. An array looks like this. You still do the same naming convention. No spaces. Movies to sell. That would be an error. No keywords. So we're going to call this movies. And arrays, whenever you think of arrays, think square brackets. Square brackets. So you hit this. And there you go. You got a square bracket. And now you put all your words that you want in the middle there. And now we use, as you see, the comma. That's called a delimiter. And so what that's going to do is it actually is going to tell the compiler, hey, I want these to be separate. I want these to be separate things. So for example, if we took all those things out, all those commas out, it would, well, first there'd be a huge error. But yeah, if you just had the quotations around everything, then yeah, then you would still get an, no, I think it would work, but it would just be one long string. And that's not what we want. We want items. Friday the 13th. So it's actually console log this out. Let's take a look at what it's actually looking like. Once again, I hit reload here. And bam, look at that. There's our array. See, it says array right there. It says array.js. It even tells us the line. I don't know if I pointed that out before. And you actually click this, it will actually show you a highlighted version of the code where you're at. Chrome is very nice to you. Shows you the length of the array, so 5. Obviously, we have 5 movies in here. And notice these 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know that you're used to, in everyday life, whenever you're asked how many, you start with 1, right? So somebody asks how many chairs are in the room. So you go 1 chair, 2 chair, 3 chairs. You got to reverse your thinking here. In computer science, they start at 0. So instead of saying 1 chair, 2 chair, they would say 0 chair, 1 chair, 2 chair. I know it's a little bit confusing, but that's just the way it is. So the reason that we need to know that is a very important one. Take a look at this array. We got 5 items in here. Say we wanted to check if push was in here. Well, we can't just, we need a way to access just push and not the entire list. And this is where what's called indexing comes from. Indexing is very important. Usually we use I to summarize that in a for loop, which I'll show you later. So you notice a 0 right here. So the Punisher is at the 0 index. Punisher is not at the 0 index, is at 2, 3, 4, and there you go. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice we had 5 in here. So it's always going to be 1 less, right? So that's a good way if you want to convert it back quickly. It's always going to be 1 less to what it was, or what you're thinking. So if the array had 10, it's actually going to have 9 to the computer, because it's going to start at 0, remember? So this is a way that we can tell the computer, hey, we want push. We want this. So simply what we do is, remember, when you think array, think square brackets. So you put square brackets in here like this. Actually, let me do a different console log for this. Get some space. So now let's say we want to push, right? So we would index 3. And then if you save this and run the thing, check what's going to happen. Bam. You notice that push was returned because I'm telling the computer, look at movies and look at the third index, right? Think of that. Think of this logically. Take it out of the computer, right? Imagine you're telling somebody in your kitchen where to find something. This might be a roundabout way to do it, but it could happen. Say that you had a thing of shelves, right? Of 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves. And on shelf 1, so movies, that's the example. So let's do the soup shelf. Down the index of 2, you'll find the Campbell's soup. So you're saying, hey, go to the soup shelf and go to 2. This is what you're doing, literally by this command. And now let's watch when we change this. So we're going to do 4 here. Friday the 13th, see that? Now let's give the computer an error to think about. See, it's going to return undefined. Once again, JavaScript is very, very nice to you. It actually kind of a little bit coddles you. In other computer languages, this would be it. Your file, your run, your application is done. The computer hit an undefined. It's not going to move forward. It's not going to move back. It's the way it is. JavaScript is very nice, and it will just say, hey, this is undefined, and keep moving on with the program if it can. Obviously, if something depended on this movie 5, then obviously something would break. But as it is, if I had another command down here saying movies or hey you, so you would still run. Did not break. Other programming languages, no, you're not getting to this command. You're done. But you know, JavaScript is very nice. So if you did the 0 index, what do you think it's going to do? Obviously, I think we're getting the hang of it. The Punisher. So this is how we index through this. So obviously we can just print out the entire thing like we did. Actually, let me not get rid of that whole thing. Whoops-a-daisy. Let me just get rid of this one. So we can print out the whole thing, right, like this. And what that's going to do is just going to plop the entire array. See the square brackets right here? So right now the array's there, but say you wanted them individually there. So what you could do is 0, do some Sublime magic. So now let's run this. Now notice that there's no brackets around these things. So think about this as just a variable. It's not a variable technically, but it's just printing out that one word instead of plopping the entire array. Notice that you still have the quotes, you still have the commas, so on and so forth. Now you don't have that. You just have what you want right here. There is a way to get rid of these, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah, so this is what it does. Well, I guess I can talk to you about it now. It's called .join. It's pretty nice. Whenever you're thinking about something in JavaScript and you're like, hey, this is what I need to do yourself a favor, Google it. Chances are that somebody wrote a wonderful function like this that just does it, and you'll notice what's going to happen. Notice that I said, like, hey, join these variables by just a blank space, and notice that it just did that. So for example, if I put this up and down symbol here, it's going to do that. See right there? Or if I did, I don't know, Q, it's going to put a Q. See? So that's a wonderful function called .join. But say you didn't want to do that for some reason. So this is where a for loop comes from. So instead of typing all these out by hand, you can actually segment your code by doing a for loop. Notice that it went red, indicating a keyword. So I'm not going to have Sublime complete it for you, for me, I should say. I would not type out, I would not use Sublime shortcuts until you memorize the syntax. Like, notice that all came out there. I wouldn't do that to yourself. It's good to know what these syntaxes are. So we're going to just go like this. For, you're going to start your bracket here. There you go. And now what we're going to do is, this is called a block level code, meaning that code is going to run in a block here. Notice that. This code just runs procedurally, line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 6. Actually, that's not exactly true. JavaScript handles it a little differently, but in usually all programming languages, it's going to hit sequentially, or it's just going to go down the line. Here, it's going to execute a block of code, hence why this is called block code. Something that I get in the habit of, and something that has really helped me, at the end of a block code with this curly brace here, I put end of for loop. And if you're wondering what these are, this is just a way to comment out stuff. So basically, as soon as the compiler sees this, the double dash, it's going to be like, okay, I'm not going to read anything after this line. Notice these are all the same color. I'm not going to read any of this. I'm just going to go right away to line 8. So this is a way, obviously, if you have a bunch of block code, your curly braces have the potential of getting messed up. So this is just a way for me to know exactly which curly brace this aligns into. So you have this for loop, and then your logic goes inside these brackets here, or I'm sorry, parentheses. And then curly braces are for block level coding. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put our logic. So you do your indicator. It's styling practice to do I, which stands for index. So this is your starting point. The first block is your starting point. So you're telling start at 0. That's basically all this is doing. And then the middle point is telling you when it's going to end. So I want this to run 4 times, right? Because I want to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what I want. If I did it, you can also do an equal sign here, but then you would have to do 5. So it's just easier to do 4. So I want this to run 4 times. So this is the middle section right here is telling the computer, this is how many times I want this for loop to run. That's why it's called a for loop. Do it for this many times. And then you have your incrementer. And so you do I plus plus. So what that symbol is doing is saying every time you go into here and it goes down to line 19, line 20, line 21, it's going to go back here, see if I is less than 4, and then it's going to just break out of here and just continue on with the lines of code down here. And so every time it goes through, I will be incremented. So the first time it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, condition met, break. That's what's going to happen. And you can have negative for loop, so you could do like this for an example, but then what you would have to do is change your logic to be this, like that. Most people don't do that. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. It's all up to your styling. And this is where best practices come in. Whenever you have block level coding that you have here, you want to give it indent. Bam. That way I know any text that's in here is inside this block level code. It gets really messy when you just have everything flush left. So give it an indent. So basically I want it to console log these movies out, right? So a way I can do that is I can do movies. And what do you think I'm going to put here? I'm not going to put any of these numbers here, right? Because, well, I wanted to avoid typing all those numbers. So what I can do is, this number is going to be changing every time, right? This number is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 by the way that I set it up here. So I can just do this. Whoop, not that. Not that either. That. And check out this magic. And then let me console log ran 5 times. So notice line 15, line 15, line 15, line 15. This went through 5 times. And this just went as soon as this logic was done. See how it printed them all out like that? It's a really good way to save yourself time. So that's kind of an introduction to arrays. You use these for loops a lot with arrays. Now think to yourself like, hey, I wouldn't mind just console logging 1, 2, 3, 4. But once again, imagine if this array was hundreds. You don't want to do that. If it was hundreds, all you did was this. And now you're done. In fact, before I go, I'm going to teach you about one more thing. It's called hard coding versus dynamic coding. Putting this as an static, what you call static, so this will never change, right? 4 will be 4, no matter what you do here. So once you put 4 here, as soon as the program runs, this will never change. There's something that we can do to make this dynamic. Notice that when we printed this out, you have length 5. See that? So the computer knows what length this array is. So if it knows the length, maybe we can be smart about this. Let's see what happens when we do this. There's this special keyword in JavaScript called .length. What .length will do is measure how many indexes are found in an array. Let's see what this gives us. 5, right? So there's 5 things in here. We're good. I am stupid. This was supposed to be 4. That's why Friday the 13th is not being printed out. I apologize. I was wrong about that. That was supposed to be 4. So yes, you're supposed to go that because it's going to not be equal to. So you would have to do that for that to be 4. I apologize. That's my bad. So it's 5. So what we can do to make this dynamic, since movies.length is going to be equal to 5, we can actually plop that in here. Okay, I'm having a hard time. Okay, it's hard to type at the same time. Notice all the logic stay the same, right? Now, this is why you don't want to normally hard code set it. So it's set to 5, right? It runs through, goes like that. What happens if you sold Friday the 13th and you come over here and you take it out of the array? And then you run it again. Look, you get an undefined. See that? Because you made this static. But take a look. We'll put Friday the 13th back in. We'll put movies.length back in. We'll run it again to make sure everything's working. See that? Now let's take it out. Yep. Save, run. Notice no undefined, no running, because this is now dynamic. So you only need to change the code at one place. So that's why it's always good to make this variable a dynamic variable so you don't run into those undefined or any type of errors. So you always want to put the name of the array that you're parsing through here, .length, like that. All right, well that's it with arrays. I think I'm going to do a second video on arrays, just about another function that's very helpful. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.